The remarks of Senator Ledama Ole Kina yesterday attracted the attention of a lot of Kenyans. What did the senator say? Let me quote it straight. It is now clear they have no plan, none. It is government by trial and error. Fellow Kenyans, in the UDA government, we've got a fish riding a bicycle. What? And of course, what triggered the good senator's remarks was the headline that the government is going to step back from the Gulf fuel import scheme. Kizungu mingi sana, but don't worry, we'll break it down. What Senator Ole Kina was saying in very simple words, that this Kenya Kwanza government is a government that has no idea what they're doing. They're doing things by trial and error. Was he correct in his remarks? On my show today, I will dig very deeply to show all of us some things most of us may not have seen, and yet it was staring at us straight in the face. Now, if you are a UDA supporter and you really love this country, don't worry. This is not a UDA bashing video. No. Instead, it is a very honest, balanced, deep look into the Kenyan government and what has gone terribly wrong. Or, if the facts support it, how the government has had bad luck. Okay, let's just analyze it and let the facts inform our decision and not emotions. And therefore, if you're an Azimio supporter, for this one, I want you to sit back and imagine that Raila Odinga is the president. Yeah, please humor me. That is the only way we'll be able to get the truth and nothing but the truth, and we leave emotions completely out of this analysis, because emotions have never helped anybody. And I'm sensitive. I know you're hurting. I know many Azimio supporters are feeling very bad. But let us try and use our intellect instead, at least for today. Let's go for it. Now, for the sake of those who go for accuracy kabisa, let me start by confessing that I've left out a small part of that Ole Kina tweet. And the part I've left out touches on prayers. You'll just have to excuse me. I take prayers very seriously. And where there's a suggestion that somebody is offering fake prayers, I completely avoid it, because I'm not a judge. There is the one who will judge, and is a righteous judge. That's not my work. And that's not your work either. Now, you know, one day a few months ago, my prayer life changed because of a passage in the book of Revelations, chapter 8, verse 3 and 4, which suggested to me something mind-blowing. That there is a place where Almighty God stores prayers. And not only that, that these prayers have a very mighty force, which when it was thrown to the earth, just read the passage for yourself. Let's analyze the politics. But I can't resist, you know, prayers like the prayers of the Kene family. Remember Sergeant Kipyegon Kene, an innocent administration police officer who died under very mysterious circumstances. The DCI told us he was murdered. He left behind people who over 3 years later are still crying. And as they're crying, they're praying to Almighty God, demanding justice. And we are in the season of judgment. Let me just leave it at that. But immediately after this, you can catch up with a video I did on these manenos, and especially the notes I have updated in the description area of that video, yeah, giving the state of affairs today and the link this thing has to a very recent death of DCI David Mayaka. Let me just leave it there. Now let us start in an interesting way by attempting to shoot down these Ole Kina remarks, prove them wrong, yeah, as we seek the truth and nothing but the truth. And the first question has to be a very simple one. Is there anything the UDA government has done so far that we can say has succeeded? Please consider that question carefully, without any emotion. And let me start by talking on behalf of the UDA presidential candidate, who is now president. There was a spirited effort to bring down the prices of unga and other basic foodstuffs down. There was actually an effort in that direction, and that is a fact. And that information is in the public domain. How did the Kenya Kwanza government attempt to do this? By giving license to a few brokers to import, for instance, maize into the country, cooking oil into the country. Now let's go very quickly. But something went terribly wrong. It can be summarized in one English word: greed. Because the whole idea in allowing a few individuals to import maize into the country, duty-free, is that this maize would be purchased by flour millers at a lower price. Hence the prices of unga would come down fast. But because of greed, but because these people are not experienced in this line of work, they were just brokers who were there to make quick money. What apparently was ordered was very cheap maize, yeah, very low quality. And so something unexpected happened, yeah, at least unexpected to the people who were behind this scheme. Our local millers rejected the maize. Why? Because they had brands which they had spent many years growing. You know, when you have a brand, your brand is your most valuable asset. It is more valuable even than the money in your bank account, because it is what yields the money in your bank account. The respect and confidence people have in your brand is what puts money in the bank for you. Simply put, had the millers purchased this maize to bring down prices, they would have destroyed the public confidence in the brands that they had taken years, some of them decades, to build. So they said no. And as all this was unfolding, Ruto went public and told Kenyans, Kwanzia next week, the prices of unga will come down dramatically. He was sure, because he knew what had been done and he knew it would work. But it didn't. And so these individuals who are stuck with tons and tons of maize imported to the country had to make their own unga. But they're not in the business. They don't have the milling machines, etc., etc. And therefore the cost was higher than what it would have been for the existing maize millers. And then of course greed kicked in. Pesa ya huyu iko hapa, this person's cut is there, this person's cut is there. I'll not be able to pay all of them and become a billionaire overnight if I charge low prices. And therefore when these new brands appeared in the market, their prices were the same as those of the other existing millers, in some cases higher. Bila kizungu mingi, exactly the same thing happened, was replicated with other foodstuffs that were imported to the country. So that plan didn't work. That promise was not kept. And I'm afraid this proves Senator Ole Kina's remarks 101% correct. These were people who didn't know what they were doing. This was fish trying to ride a bicycle. You know, fish don't even have legs. How do they even begin to ride a bicycle? And I'm saying that why? Because an experienced person would have been able to foresee the possible problems with this seemingly ingenious plan. Now, Ole Kina in his tweet, of course, was referring to the report in a local daily about the government's move to step back from the Gulf fuel import scheme. What is this kizungu mingi all about? Simply put, yet another ingenious plan was hatched. You see, the shilling was already receiving a lot of battering. The shilling ilikuwa inapigwa sana na dollar. Yeah, the shilling was losing value to the dollar very fast. So somebody came up with an idea which on paper looked ingenious. Which item on the list of things we buy in US dollars costs us the highest amount of foreign currency? The answer to that is obvious. Petrol, fuel. And so the plan, very simply put, was to buy fuel on credit. 6 months credit. I have to confess, some of these things look really ingenious on paper. Because for 6 months, theoretically, the shilling would have no pressure against the dollar. The largest item on the list has been wiped out. Bah! It's gone. Because it is estimated that the country, at least at that time, was spending 500 million US dollars monthly just to purchase fuel using US dollars. And so if this plan worked, a huge parcel of the demand for dollars would vanish overnight. The Kenyan shilling would strengthen, maybe even down to 60, 40, 30 to the US dollar. And Kenyans would be happy with the Kenya Kwanza presidency. But alas, it didn't quite happen like that. Please allow me to go back to spiritual laws in trying to figure out what went wrong. The spiritual advice is that you should buy your things cash. If you need something, you wait until you have enough money and then you buy it. When you start madeni, getting credit here and there, the spiritual implication is that this spirit of debt calls other spirits of debt, and before long you find yourself drowning, sinking in debt. Now, I'm not naive. I'm keenly aware that most of you will not buy that, but that's okay. My work is to give you the truth as I know it, and nothing but the truth. So the situation today is that the first 6 months are going to end very, very soon, mid-September. Na watu wanatetemeka, watu wanatoa jasho. Don't be fooled by the confident smiles. Kumekucha, things are very bad. Now let's take a look at some interesting figures. The exchange rate of the Kenya shilling to the dollar at the beginning of April, the month that we got the first fuel, kwa deni, was shillings 132.50 Kenya shillings to 1 US dollar. The exchange rate at the beginning of this month, 1st August, was approximately 142.50 Kenya shillings to the dollar. That is a gain of 10 Kenya shillings, roughly, give or take. Now, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of kizungu mingi in defense of what I'm about to say, but let us not lose track of the objective here. The objective from the beginning was that by the time these 6 months had ended, because there was no pressure on the shilling, yeah, the biggest bill on the list had been removed, the Kenya shilling would be very strong, maybe under 100 Kenya shillings to the dollar, or even maybe, let's fantasize, 50, 60 Kenya shillings to the dollar. Magic! Instead, the very opposite has happened. And we need to get very worried and ask ourselves, why is the Kenya shilling still losing value against the dollar, even when the biggest item on the list, fuel, has been out for the last 6 months? That is really worrying, because it may suggest that if that fuel bill was there every month as usual, I don't even want to think about it. The shilling would have lost even more value. The take-home lesson here, actually there are two. One, the other factors that cause the currency of a country to be strong. Lesson number two, running a government is not just good ideas, this ingenious idea, this shortcut here and there. No! It is much more than that. And therefore, we have no option but to agree with Senator Ole Kina that actually this is a situation where fish are trying to ride a bicycle. One last very quick example that all of us saw. The government decided on another ingenious strategy of dealing with maandamano. Spread fear to the people. How do you do this? Using police brutality. And then people will not turn up for the maandamanos. Numbers will go down gradually, and then maandamanos will be dealt with. We all know how that worked out. Hey, complete disaster. There are cases pending at the ICC. Maandamanos have grown from strength to strength until some dark forces have had to step in, give threats here and there, and force the maandamanos to come to a halt. But trust me, they're coming back, stronger, bigger than ever before. So once again, yet another Kenya Kwanza ingenious plan failed. And there are so many other examples I can give. And so to answer the question I started with, let me repeat it. Is there anything this government has done that has worked, that has become a success? The answer, I'm afraid, is no. Hakuna. And this tells us something else that is very, very troubling. What we have been seeing in the media, what we read in our newspapers about progress here and there, about success here and there, cannot be true. It is manufactured news. It is news based on propaganda. Our media is not free. Let me give you a quick example to illustrate this. There is a meeting where Ruto went somewhere in Kenya. You'll forgive me, I have to keep it vague like that. For a very good reason. And at this meeting, he made his speech shouting or trying to shout above the jeers and boos and the talking back from the public. You know, in this country we have very sophisticated audio equipment which can drown out what the people are saying and focus on the voice of the main speaker. Iko Kenya. But sticking to my point, there was no report of that crazy, mind-blowing development anywhere. And yet, we had reporters from leading media houses who were there when this was unfolding, but it was never reported. You know, this story of pushing fake narratives, to be fair to the Kenya Kwanza government, did not start yesterday. It started a long time ago. It started in earnest in the year 2013. And to be able to understand exactly what I'm talking about, it is critical that you take in my latest book, Tyranny of Fake Narratives, which gives you the inside story. It even neatly explains to you how the BBI was sabotaged. Something which was popular amongst a vast majority of Kenyans. But at the end of the day, it looked like it was very unpopular. There's some magic which was done there, faking narratives. And that magic is still very much in place today, trying to fake the real situation on the ground. Because Kenyans should know that we are facing disaster, and it is right around the corner. Mid-September, watu wanatoa jasho. You need to know that. Now, watoi jasho bure, there is a very good reason. There is a large bill in foreign exchange to be settled. Hiyo pesa itatoka wapi? Kizungu mingi will not pay the bill. Carefully crafted statements will not pay the bill. Fake narratives promoted very cleverly in our media will not pay that bill. Hey. By the way, you can get my latest book, Tyranny of False Narratives. You can see details on your screens right now. I even now have an audio version of the book, where you can listen to the words, because I know many people don't like to read. Many people hardly have the opportunity to read. And if you want the audio book included, it costs only $6.99, or Kenya shillings 699. Somebody wrote me an email the other day asking me for the Kenya shillings value of my new book. It is 699 Kenya shillings. Okay? Many who have read this latest book of mine, their reaction has been, what? Not so much because of the book, but because of how their eyes have been opened to understand what is going on, and to understand that you need to take in media reports very carefully. If you really want to know the real state of affairs in our dear motherland, you need to take in those reports very, very carefully. Quick reminder, please don't forget to take in that Kene video, Kipegon Kene, the late, very sad story of an innocent AP officer. But the focus is on the notes in the description area, where you will be able to also see, your prayers usually go somewhere. The prayers of others who have been injured, relatives of innocent people, they go somewhere. And the effect, the backlash from it, you don't even want to think about it. There will be a link to that video in the description area below, and also repeated at the end, if you're using a gadget that is able to see the end screens, at the end of this video in a few seconds. Make sure you catch it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.